been thinking recently a lot about freedom and the freedom that we've got in this country. Freedom of speech, democracy, the welfare system, the care, the NHS, so many things we've got in this country that are such a blessing that we take for granted. I recently found out that my own granddad was a German American. He lived in Pennsylvania in America, and he was called up in the war to fight his own people. My mum has only just found out that her dad didn't die in the war but actually lived until the 1990s. She never got to see him. My other granddad served in the war. He was a cook in the army, and he was a preacher to the soldiers in the war, encouraging them from the Bible. Apparently he was quite brave. He was like a messenger between the trenches. He had a charmed life. Should have died twice. When the war finished, he was in hospital, partially blinded by mustard gas. He was so annoyed that there was a truce. He was livid. Germany had to sign the Treaty of Versailles and begin to pay reparation payments to the European countries, and all the restrictions were put on them so that they couldn't build an army like they did last time. So their army was restricted, the Air Force and then the Navy, particularly U-boats. Hitler was livid about this and vowed in his own heart first that one day he would make Germany glorious again. He had to have a scapegoat for why Germany were defeated, and his scapegoat was the Jews. And after World War I, Adolph Hitler began to attend rallies in Germany, just sitting and listening, find out what people were actually thinking. And eventually he joined the German Socialist Party. He became a well-known speaker. He was somebody that could charm people on a personal level, but he could also woo the crowd. He was an amazingly gifted man, and the thing about Hitler was he actually practiced what he preached. He vowed that he would do away with unemployment, and he did. He vowed that he would do away with democracy, and he did. And he vowed that he would annihilate the Jews, and he nearly did. Hitler was so extreme in his views of what he wanted of the German nation that he was put on trial for high treason against his own nation. He pleaded guilty and then began to use his own trial as an audience to convince the judge and the jury to follow him. I think Hitler believed he was God. I think the man believed so much in himself, so much in his ability. One of his favourite words was annihilation, and he vowed to annihilate anybody that stood in his path. So the press in Germany that stood against him, he systematically had them killed. He began to unite different factions together until ultimately his party became the biggest party in Germany. And ultimately in 1933, Adolf Hitler, a fanatic, a monster, a genocidal maniac, became Chancellor of Germany. How does that happen? It happened that was in increments. When Hitler was released from prison, he only served 9 months, I think. He came out as a hero, you know. He was the martyr. He was the guy that everybody wanted to follow. He was the Braveheart of Germany. He was the guy that everybody feared. If anybody was going to restore Germany's pride and self-esteem, it was going to be Adolf Hitler. And he did. He did away with unemployment. In fact, he even gave his workers holidays abroad by subsidising the holidays through the government. People loved him. They worshipped him. And he worshipped himself. He believed that he was some kind of a god. Adolf Hitler was steeped in the occult. He dabbled with very evil things. Stand up. Get it back down. Take the camera back. Good job at getting the camera back. Horrendous. After the invasion of Poland, there was a time where there was a silence for a small amount of time, and then Germany began to blitzkrieg through France. And we all know what happened. We've all seen Dad's Army. Who do you think you're kidding, Mr. Hitler? All our Allied troops were pushed back by the Germans. We were surrounded by the Germans at Dunkirk. And it was over, basically. We got 320,000, it was more than that, it was about 400,000 Allied troops trapped. They got the sea to the back of them, and they were surrounded by the German Luftwaffe and the ground troops. It was over. The whole thing was over. Hitler believed it was over. Hitler's generals believed it was over. Hitler always believed that if Britain was took, the world would fall. And it was at that time that George VI asked for a day of prayer across the nation, and the whole nation prayed. After that day of prayer, or actually coinciding with that day of prayer, 3 things happened. Number 1, for some bizarre reason, Hitler ordered the ground troops to stop instead of going forwards. Number 2, there was a strange storm which brought down a really dense fog which stopped the Luftwaffe from taking off. And number 3, for 8 days, the English Channel was as calm as a mill pond, and it allowed us over 8 days to rescue. Churchill believed that if we got 30,000 troops back, we'd have done fairly well. Well, after 8 days, fishing boats got involved, steam paddlers got involved, leisure cruisers got involved, obviously the naval frigates and destroyers got involved, and we managed to get back, over an 8-day period, 320,000 Allied troops. If that hadn't have happened, we would have been taken. It was another miracle. What happened 70 years ago? Personally, I believe we should never forget what happened to the Jews 70 years ago. The First World War began with one single act of terror, and we should never forget. I am seriously worried, because in the same way that Neville Chamberlain was convinced this whole thing would go away, I think there's thousands and thousands of people in Great Britain that are convinced somehow this whole thing is just going to go away, and I'm not so sure. I had a dream 10 years ago that this nation was being invaded. I saw the invasion. I asked somebody in the dream, can you see what I see? And the person said, no, I can't see it. I woke up and 3 words came to me instantly: invasion, occupation and destruction. 3 phases. Somebody handed me a piece of paper 2 weeks ago that said that jihad has 3 phases to it. There are 3 phases to jihad. The first phase is to come in as a minority and to play the minority card, play the persecution card. When they've rallied popularity with the persecution card, then they move into what they call defensive jihad, which means terrorist bombs and so on going off. And once that's instilled fear into a nation, they move on to the 3rd stage. And the 3rd stage is the implementation of Sharia law. We appeased the Arabs back in World War II, and I think in many ways, folks, we're in the process of doing the same thing again.